Let's get started. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Charter Review Committee of the City of San Bernardino. We have with us a 14-year-old student from San Bernardino High School who's on spring break, and he got to come and see our meeting, and I'm going to ask him to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Andy Fuentes, right here.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Shall we call the roll?
Yes. Casey Daly, Ward 1.
Here.
Scott Olson, Ward 2.
Here.
Angela Torres is absent. Ward 4 is vacant. Ward 5 is vacant. Ricky Van Johnson.
Present.
James Albert.
Here.
Timothy Prince.
He's here.
And Letitia Briggs is absent, and you have a quorum.
And I think Letitia is out of town, and Angela is ill today, so those are both excused absences without objection. And also without objection, I'm proposing that we withhold the comments from committee members until the end of the meeting and start with public comments. And then when we get to our agenda, I'd like to take up the term limits issue first and limit it to 15 minutes to make sure we get through this agenda, and then take items numbered on the agenda 2 and 4 together. Is that okay? Any objection to that?
I'd prefer to keep 2 and 4 separate, to be honest with you.
The item 4 on the agenda is called Improving the Council Manager Form of Government, and item 2 is the role and powers and duties of the mayor. And I don't see how you can really consider those separately. They're all part of the same picture, so
Yeah,
that's why I thought, why separate them?
Well, the role, power, duties of the mayor is just that, the role, power, duties of the mayor. Ways to explore opportunities to improve the council manager form of government, I definitely see as separate.
Well, I don't want to spend too much time, certainly not on arguing the issue, but any other thoughts on that?
Since this is a council manager form of government, I think it would behoove us to keep them separate at this point in time.
All right, anybody else? Okay, we'll just change the order then, and we'll take what's currently designated as item 2 as item 3, and then move on to item 4, which is improving the council manager form of government. Okay, with that, we have some public comments. Let's start with David Friedman. You have 3 minutes, and you can take the microphone on the audience right. Got to have the red button, I think. Isn't it?
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is David Friedman. Good to see all of you. I just want to go over some points that I think are important to consider as we move forward with this kind of like strong manager form of government. I believe that if a council member cannot get something done in 2 terms, then they're not going to get it done in a 3rd term. I think every council member should be max limited to 8 years. No cool-off period, 2 max forever. I think the mayor should continue to be voted in by the people. I think that's very common in large cities like San Bernardino, Sacramento. That's how they do it. If it's good enough for Sacramento, it's good enough for San Bernardino. The mayor should continue to have veto power. They should be able to add items to the agenda. They're obviously the chair for all the meetings. They should do their best to build consensus among other council members and get people to move towards a vote. They should also be the representative for the city to the county, state, and federal government. So the mayor is kind of like our face, right? They're the face of our city. They're out there shaking hands, kissing babies, all that stuff. That's their job. They should be out there getting money for our city, getting funding, getting all that stuff. There's really nothing more to it than that. Except for when they're at the city council meetings, then they should be keeping order and keeping things moving forward. I want to also recommend that we move to ranked choice voting. It's financially a smart decision. We would no longer have a need for runoffs, which costs our city a ton of money. With ranked choice voting, people would vote in order of who they want to vote for council or for mayor, and it would be very conclusive who would win based off of that ranked choice voting. It would save a ton of money. That's, I mean, for anyone who's like financially conservative, that alone is worth doing ranked choice voting. I also, one thing that is maybe like pretty progressive that some cities will do is they will provide campaign funding for applicants who reach a certain threshold of signatures. Basically, it helps level the playing field for leaders in our community who may not be as well off as their competitor. You shouldn't be able to win a council seat just because you have more funding or more money. And so I really think that we should try to be a progressive city and provide funding for people who reach a threshold, applicants who want to become a council member, but maybe they're young, maybe they're just starting out in life, maybe they just don't have the same resources as a rich competitor. But that doesn't mean that their ideas are worse or that they would be a worse leader. And so I think we need to consider that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Friedman. Next is James Smith, followed by Angela Wilkinson.
Yes, we're the chairman and members of the Charter Review Committee. I just wanted to compliment you on moving this forward. I think we need to move back to the type of form of government that we had before we lost the charter form of government. I think the mayor needs to be in a much stronger position. Right now, I think the city council members have too much authority during the council members. They're calling all these special meetings. They're also meeting secretly behind closed doors in violation of the Brown Act. And I think what we need to do is to move forward. And in the election coming up in June, which is only a couple months away, what we need to do is to seriously consider some changes to the current 3 council positions that are up for election. I think that's important, and with some new blood there, some new thoughts, that I think we can create a situation to where we can improve the image of the city of San Bernardino to where people will want to come to San Bernardino. We need to always improve our image to make sure that people want to become involved in the city of San Bernardino. And I think under the individuals that we have on the Charter Review Committee, I think that'll become a reality. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Angela Wilkinson, followed by Andy Fuentes.
President, excuse me, President, the Chair, Charter members, my name is Angela Wilkinson. Just want to let everyone know that I am not a resident of the city of San Bernardino, but I was actually raised in San Bernardino. I actually worked for the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department for 17 and a half years. So I'm a 30-year county employee as well. I was 2 months old when we came back to San Bernardino from Costa County. But I wanted to let everyone know that we should maintain the authority for the mayor. Since I've been voting since I was 21 years old, I just want to let you know that it seems like we change mayors almost like we changed our bed sheets. That's the comments I got, because I did campaign for Mayor Tran. And you can see the condition of San Bernardino, how we can complain what she's not doing or what she hasn't doing. Times have changed, and I'm very proud of the fact that she's being involved in the city like most of the county board of supervisors and other, cities surrounding us. So we need to consider that. You have to remember how long it took for the city to get to where it was, and also how long it's going to take to get back somewhat to where it was, the all-American city. So I would consider to let Mayor Helen Tran, the mayor, have authority and go through elections and let the people vote to who they want to as mayor. But every time we change, it sets back. It sets us back. So I just want everyone to consider the thought process and how long it takes for us to get back to where we were years ago. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Fuentes.
Good evening, members of the Charter Review Committee. My name is Andy Fuentes, and I appreciate my opportunity to speak with you today. I want to acknowledge how important it is that this committee is in active meetings and engaging in this process. For many in our community, it's felt like forever since our charter has had a meeting like this, so it's encouraging to see all the work moving forward. Although I wasn't able to attend the last meeting, I'm glad to be here now to share my perspective. I would like to speak on item number 3 regarding term limits. I strongly believe that implementing term limits is necessary for the health and progress of our city. When individuals remain in office for extended periods of time without delivering meaningful results, it can lead to a lack of accountability and a disconnect from the evolving needs of our community. In San Bernardino, we have seen examples of long-serving officials such as Councilman Fred Charette, whose tenure spans decades longer than I've been alive. Yet many residents feel that their neighbors, particularly in the 4th Ward, have not seen the level of improvement or investment they deserve. This concern is not isolated, but reflects a broader frustration with a pattern of long-term incumbency across the council, where some members appear to remain in office without demonstrating significant process or representatives. Term limits would help address this by ensuring regular opportunities for new leadership, fresh ideas, and renewed energy. They create a system where elected officials must be consistently accountable to the public, knowing that their time in office is limited and their legacy depends on what they accomplish during the time. This encourages a stronger focus on reality, innovation, and community engagement. In addition, I want to emphasize that any changes to our city charter, especially something as significant as term limits, must be accompanied by strong and intentional public outreach. Many residents are not aware of what the charter committee does or how these decisions impact their daily lives. If we want meaningful reform, we need to ensure that the community is informed, engaged, and given real opportunities to provide input. That means outreach in multiple language, accessible means, and proactive efforts to reach residents where they are. I also want to clarify that while I support the idea of term limits during the previously discussed special meeting that was called by Councilmember Sanchez, I did not support how that proposal was structured. Important reforms like this deserve to stand on their own and be considered thoughtfully rather than being combined with unrelated measures that may dilute and complicate their intent. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuentes. I don't know about you all, but when I was a freshman in high school, I wouldn't have been able to prepare comments like that, and especially on my spring break, I would have been out riding my bike, I think. Thank you so much for caring about your city. Okay, that brings us to the consent calendar. Draft minutes were distributed, and does anybody have changes or amendments to those minutes?
I do, Mr. Chair. What I recall on the motion to nominate Casey Daly as chair, it was motioned by Ricky Van Johnson and it was seconded by me. Not sure if we can take a look at that, but that's what I recall at least. If we're talking about the minutes, or do you want to talk about the consent calendar?
No, that's fine. That's all that's on the consent calendar is the minutes. So this item 3 under the draft minutes, it does mention that James Albert moved and No, it doesn't mention anybody nominating other candidates. It's just the successful motions that were.
In my minutes, it says that I move for to nominate Casey Daly for, oh, I'm sorry, I totally read that wrong. My apologies.
Yeah. Casey was unanimously voted in as vice chair. So,
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
I do have one change under item 2 of the draft minutes. There's a phrase that appears twice, which is a bit redundant, but more importantly, it kind of implies that the mayor and the whole council supported the proposal by Ted Sanchez. So I would just propose removing the first phrase, by the mayor and city council. So under item 2 motion, it would read, the Charter Review Committee strongly opposes efforts to place the June 2 ballot charter amendments brought forward by discussion on February 2nd, mayor and city council special meeting agenda. I think that accurately summarizes that we opposed it, and not all the mayor did not support that. She actually vetoed it, and not all the city council supported it either. So I think that would be appropriate. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I second.
I will amend my motion.
Thank
I
you,
second.
Casey. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. And that brings us to term limits for charter cities in California. And I want to thank our city management representative, Corey, for his excellent work in preparing us for our meeting. Do you want to start off with a summary comment or two for the sake of the public, if nothing else?
Sure, let me just flip to that item. Item 3. Yes, so just to queue up your discussion, there was a little bit of background in 2022. In 2022, the committee asked us to look into charter cities and the term limits, and so we took a sample size of small cities, populations less than 100,000, medium-sized cities, populations between 200,000 and 299,000, and then large cities, population over 3,000. And we provided a table, and so in anticipation of this discussion, I updated that table with additional charter cities of Pasadena and Oakland, and tried to accurately reflect the size, term limit of the mayor, term limit of the city council, and any key detail that might be specific to that charter city.
Casey, do you want to bring us up to speed on what the Charter Review Committee of days gone by discussed and decided on term limits, if you remember?
Well, to be honest, I don't think there was a whole lot of discussion. It didn't end up in the, if it didn't end up in the charter that we have now, then it wasn't something that was deemed to be super critical for the needs of where we were back then. So it's an important issue. I think it's probably worthwhile for us to have a conversation here and talk about, perspectives and thoughts on whether term limits are appropriate or not. But it wasn't included in the current charter. So that's as much as I can say.
Doesn't sound like there was any real strong feelings one way or the other, more of a practical decision that the Charter Committee had its hands full in all the extensive changes that were they threw out the whole historic charter, and they probably didn't want to take on too many issues that weren't of the top importance. I don't know if that's a fair
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that it didn't rise to the level of some of the other issues that the new charter was addressing.
We had a couple public comments that touched on that, and I've certainly heard a lot of frustration in the community about the council members that seem to focus on those that had a long track record, shall we say. Does anybody have any strong feelings on term limits?
Tim, if I may. I'll be honest with everybody here. When it comes to term limits, I'm generally against them, but in reality, I'm ambivalent. And the example I will use is we currently had a big thing with the County of San Bernardino where they said the supervisors would get term limits. And everybody's going, oh, wow, we're doing great. One of those guys, whether you like him or not, Hagman, career politician from the assembly, from the state, termed out, went to work for the county supervisors. The current term limits were for 12 years. And I think 12 is a good enough number. I'm not going to debate. I mean, you get beyond 16, you're going a little bit ridiculous. But because of the way they impose term limits, Hagman now gets to do another either 12 or 14 years, whereas before he would have only done the 12, he would have been turned out. For all of those people who think, oh, I don't like this elected official who's been there for too long, trust me, I have a few of them on my own list. You're not going to get rid of them by passing term limits. What you do when you pass term limits is you start this clock all over again. And if we do it right, we're looking at somebody like the longest running person is Fred Charette. He could be almost 90 by the time he turns out, depending on how it's done. You're not getting your goals accomplished. And in reality, the best term limits you will ever have, and they're very effective, is campaigns and election. Every single time an elected official comes up for an election, that is term limits in reality. Now, unfortunately, if they're not elected, we're stuck with them. That's just the way we set things up. So for me, when you have elections and campaigns, and believe me, I have more experience working on campaigns probably than every other person in this room, at more levels than anybody else in this room, I can tell you, if you want to have things improved with term limits, find somebody who's better and put them on the ballot, because you can only vote for who's on the ballot. And that's kind of my reality check with term limits. If you want to pass them, fine, but realize you get nothing done.
Mr. Van Johnson? Mr. Johnson?
Certainly. Thank you.
Old habits are hard to change.
Just points, arguments in favor of city council term limits. Some sample arguments are limits potential alleged abuses of power by elected officials who stay in office too long, encourages new people to get involved in local government, which can create a citizen legislative body rather than full-time politician, broadens the base of potential candidates, increases responses to the public, encourages fresh ideas, provides voters with more choices, increases voter turnout, ensures a better balance of power among different interest groups, encourages broader representation, reduces the cost of campaigns. Arguments against term limits: loss of experience, erodes the effectiveness of city council members in their final term, which produces a lame duck status, restricts the ability of future voters from voting on who their city council members should be. Term limits are supposed to be applied toward full-time politicians who serve in larger jurisdictions and not towards part-time city council members in smaller cities. Elected officials who have experience in their position provide more value to the community because of their knowledge, contacts, institutional, historical memory, and focus on long-term outcomes. Prevents highly effective and responsive city council members from continuing their work for the community. Enhances the power of staffs, unions, lobbyists, consultants, and special interest groups. Those are just some pros and cons of that. My thinking on always introducing ballot initiative is how much they're going to cost. That's something I would like to know, not only on during the primaries, but also on the general. If we introduce what we are talking about, a term limit, it tends to be political because there's pointing at one person. And that makes it a challenge to win it, make it a winnable decision. And also, we have what they propose. They talked about 3 term limits. In the history of the 50 years in the city of San Bernardino, there's only been one person that served more than 3 terms consecutively on a council or a mayor position. So I would, in my opinion, it would be a waste of dollars to introduce that in San Bernardino.
Could you state that again, Ricky, in terms of the, there's only been one person?
In the last 50 years, there's only been one person, and the mayor or city council that served consecutively over 3 terms. Now, Mayor Holcomb served, and then he came back and served again, but it was not consecutively. Esther Estrada, as a council member in Ward 1, was the only one that served more than 3 terms.
That surprises me. I think that's a very significant fact. Why create a problem that doesn't exist?
In San Bernardino, we have a way of getting rid of people that we don't think are effective.
I have some comments along those lines for the next agenda item. But any other thoughts on this? I'm hearing a consensus of this not being a high priority item that we should tackle for this analysis.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think, we have to remember as a body here, anything that we do is only going to be a recommendation ultimately up to the mayor and council for their discussion and for them to actually make the decision to place anything on a ballot. And so I agree that, we might be looking at it. We might be looking for a solution to a problem that doesn't exist right now. And so I'm perfectly comfortable to just table this until forever, until there's a reason to bring it back.
And even if you look at the one member who has served a lengthy time on the current city council, he's just barely held on some of those elections. So it's not, the incumbent's advantage of San Bernardino is probably not what it is in some jurisdictions. So.
Well, and if I could, just one other thing, and I'm sorry to interject on that, but I agree, and I think that is also reflective of what the charter has done by aligning San Bernardino elections with gubernatorial and presidential elections. The turnout has gotten higher in those years. When it was in the odd years, it was very easy for elected officials to get elected and then reelected and then reelected. Maybe not mayor and council, but certainly there were more than just mayor and council as elected officials in prior to 2016. And I think we can see there, it's very easy when you are voting in an off year to control an election with dozens, hundreds, if not dozens of votes. And so I think by having the election cycle for San Bernardino as it is now, with, aligned with gubernatorial and presidential elections, we get higher voter turnout. And so it's less likely that a small faction of the community can control one or more positions.
Okay, without objection, we will let that agenda item die a peaceful death. Well, do we need a vote? I don't think so.
One more point. If the city council choose to introduce term limits, it would not impact the next race.
No, not at all.
And so that's a point to consider.
Right. Well, I don't see any need for a vote. We can just move on. Okay, I'm seeing the city attorney official's head nod in the affirmative. So we will move on to the next item, which would be the role, powers, and duties of the mayor. And just to be transparent and also to be respectful, welcome, I see in the audience, Mayor Tran. I also see in the audience former council member Jim Mulvihill. Welcome. He's got some expertise in local government issues, professor at Cal State. And of course, Mr. Johnson has a lot of experience on the city council. And do we have Virginia Marquez? Yes, there she is. Former councilwoman Virginia Marquez from the First Ward. Welcome. Okay, do we want to start with a little summary of what you've put together so well?
Yes, thank you, Chair. For this item, I just tried to provide a simple and concise outline of the role, power, and duties of the mayor of the old charter and of the new charter. And so hopefully that's helpful to your discussion, me separating it out in that way.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to kind of clear the air on something, and since I don't see anybody's hand up. You know, we're dealing with terminology here of city council, manager, form of government. There is a recognized form of government called a strong mayor form of government. And the chief distinction, which I think is borne out in the materials that we were provided in our backup from the International City Management Association, et cetera, would indicate that the dividing line between the forms of government, as I see it, is whether the mayor has a role in the day-to-day administrative operation of City Hall. And I think those of us that are critics of past history of San Bernardino remember the days starting in 1905 when we were a small town and continuing on through, it's been mentioned, Mayor Holcomb served as our mayor for 18 years. That the mayor had a heavy hand in the day-to-day business of City Hall, and that was part of the mayor's power. I'm not hearing a lot of desire out in the community to return to that specific aspect of the mayor's powers. What I'm hearing are comments that would be within our jurisdiction here of the city council manager form of government, but to increase the mayor's role and abilities within that form of government. That people feel that the city council has disrespected the mayor's position, has taken away staff, has made it very difficult for the mayor to accomplish goals that she campaigned for and she was elected to pursue. So speaking personally, that's my emphasis, would be ways that we could increase the mayor's role without changing the form of government, without involving the mayor in the administrative day-to-day duties. But one thing I think would be very important, we have a history as a strong mayor city, and our voters almost overwhelmingly look to the mayor to get things done. The mayor is the first person they blame when things aren't getting done right, and the first person they give credit to when things are going great. And to expect the mayor to withstand that scrutiny and accountability without the ability to nominate the chief administrative officer, I think is highly unfair. So the historic charter, the mayor had the ability to nominate the city manager. That allows one person who's elected citywide to go out on a search to find the best qualified person, and a person that they have trust in. And if they place that trust in a nominee, they deserve to be accountable for the performance of that individual, considering that person's education, that person's experience. It's not fair under the current system that the city council majority goes out and appoints some marginally qualified person. The mayor has to work with that person. I mean, we've had some pretty terrible nominations. And I'm just going to go ahead and name one of them. Montoya, that's one of the worst resumes I've ever seen as a business owner and as a community member and a member of many nonprofit boards. I can't even believe somebody would hire a person with such a spotty employment record that you could spend 10 minutes on Google and find out he's been either disciplined or terminated from every city he's ever worked at. He had no achievements at any city of any note. And yet the majority of the city council felt that that was a good choice. And our current mayor is going out to the voters to stand scrutiny on that lack of performance and that revolving door city manager. It's not right. It's not working in San Bernardino. We don't have the right demographics, the right cultural history, the right dynamic to have a city council that can sit down objectively and say, well, this person went to University of California at Los Angeles, and this person went to this great university and had this great experience in these cities and achieved these things. There's not the unity and consensus on the council. And quite frankly, we don't have a consistent record of qualifications on the city council to be able to even evaluate a professional that makes hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. So if a person has withstood a citywide election, has run a campaign of the level to get them elected, we at least have a shot at a person that can make a good choice on who's the best qualified and experienced. So that's one change, as you can tell, I feel very strongly about, is the mayor should have the opportunity to nominate the city manager, not supervise. The city council can do that, and the mayor is the leader of the city council. The mayor doesn't need to get involved in the administrative. And most importantly, the council can take the nomination of the mayor and reject it and say, nope, we don't like this person, try again. And that seemed to work pretty fine over more than 100 years in the city of San Bernardino, leading us to become the All-America city.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Thank you. 50 plus years ago is what you're talking about when the city was an All-American city. I wasn't born when the city was an All-American city, so that means, unfortunately, zero to me. But we are talking about the role and duties of the mayor, and I think it's very important here that we don't look to the current mayor because, I support the current mayor. I didn't support the previous mayor. I might not support the next mayor. This is not about individuals in the seat. This is about the seat itself. And, when you have somebody that you like in the office and you want to give that person more power, great. But when that person is no longer in power and somebody else that you don't like comes in, then they have all the power that was bestowed upon the previous mayor. And so it's super important that we separate ourselves from the personalities of those that currently hold the office and the actual roles, duties, and responsibilities of the position. And that's what this is to talk about. It's the roles, duties, and responsibility of the position, not the political challenges between the current mayor and city council. And the current mayor and city council and all of the mayors and city councils are the ones ultimately responsible for the leadership of San Bernardino. The charter is not preventing San Bernardino from thriving. So if we want to talk about the roles, powers, and duties of the mayor, one of the things that was heavily discussed several years ago when we were drafting the current charter and talking about it and going out into community meetings was that, as was noted earlier by one of our public speakers, that the mayor is the only position that's elected by all of the residents. And because of that, there was a strong interest in giving the mayor a full vote so the mayor can vote alongside their colleagues amongst the council. And that gained a lot of interest and traction. And I think that that's something that could and should be considered for us to talk about. Now, the trade-offs with that, of course, are you can't have an even number of votes on the dais. And so going back to that conversation, we've got 7 council members and the mayor, so that's 8. So how do you get to an odd number of votes in that construct? You do one of 2 things. You increase the number of wards. So you increase the number of elected officials in the city. You increase the number of wards to 8, which is insane. Or you decrease the number of wards to 6. The trade-offs are what they are. And I'm sure some would say that, if you reduce the number of wards, you're reducing the representation of those individuals within those wards. That's a fair statement. If you increase the number of wards, you are adding more voices to the dais, which also creates some challenges. And I don't think that there's any city that I can think of that has a population of around 200,000 that's got 8 council members. But those are the kinds of things that I think this committee is appropriately positioned to discuss. And the current charter allows, the mayor gets to vote alongside the council members on the selection of the city manager. And, I'm not going to defend any of the city managers that have come through City Hall here, but we've had about 7 in the last 5 years. And so the idea that it's, if the mayor was somehow responsible for making the decision on who the manager was going to be, which I don't agree with, I agree that the mayor should be part of the decision because at this point it's the council who votes. The council is who votes on the budget. And so there's been 7 city managers in San Bernardino in the last 5 years. That's the problem. The problem is the fact that you've got the council, all of the elected officials are unable to create clear vision and strategy for where the city needs to go, and so you end up with a revolving door of managers. And now, as a profession, managers you're getting what is San Bernardino can get. And so you reference, other city managers who have had disciplinary problems. That's what you get. When you have this kind of turnover, when you have this kind of toxicity at City Hall, you get what you get, and that's what we're getting. And so my opinion on it is if we want to talk about giving the mayor a vote, I'm all for that. Let's have that conversation. Outside of that, I'm not really sure where we need to have changes or discuss changes as it relates to the current position of the mayor.
Well, it wouldn't be the mayor's decision who would be the city manager. The mayor would only have the opportunity to nominate. So we have the only citywide elected official going through all those resumes, making all those evaluations instead of 7 council members plus the mayor, all equals, sitting side by side trying to reach consensus, which we have already seen fail. I agree with you, Casey. We shouldn't personalize this to people that are currently in office, but we certainly should learn from the past 10 years under this charter that things are not working well. This city has not prospered. Our citizens and taxpayers are not happy with the state of affairs in this city. And your protection of the current charter and refusal to look at amendments of ways we can improve is not serving the taxpayers and the citizens. And
well,
it's not acknowledging.
The charter is not the
excuse
reason.
me,
the
I'm
city,
not done.
Well,
you can
you're
speak.
Addressing me by
You're
name.
out of order.
You're addressing
You're out
me
of
by
order,
name.
Mr. Daly.
You are addressing me by name, sir.
Okay, I will let you speak next,
Then-
but you're out of order.
Then
Thank you.
Get to it.
This is the problem on the city council. We have people that don't respect the rules and talk out of turn. So if we are going to take the charter and exclude it from any possible improvements and accept that things are the best they can be in San Bernardino, we're not doing our job. It's our mission to see how we can improve things. Go ahead.
Thank you. The charter is not the reason the city is having the problems that it is. It's the lack of leadership from our elected officials, sir. That is the reason. The city has zero vision, zero strategy, and zero plan forward on how to make it right. And the charter is not the reason that the city is not doing that. It's, again, the lack of leadership from our current elected officials. And if we want to change that, as Mr. Olson has said, change it at the ballot box.
Scott.
I've been very active in the community, and I've been listening to a lot of people. And literally 99% of the people I've talked to, most of them who have no clue about what happened 15 years ago, they all ask, why is the charter so short? We had a charter that was supposedly dysfunctional and couldn't handle business. It was 42 pages long. Now all of a sudden we have the idea that we can make everything work in a city like San Bernardino with 12 pages. I don't know about you, but if your son or daughter goes to work at McDonald's, they're going to get a handbook with a whole lot of pages. We have less, what, 1 page, give or take, what, a couple lines that defines what the mayor's job is? The problem with the charter that I've heard consistently over and over again is it is too vague. It is too easy to manipulate and use against a person, whether you like them or don't like them. And our current mayor and our former mayor are two totally different individuals in every way, shape, and form. Whether I vote for somebody or not, when they get in office, if I want to get something done, I have to work with them. Okay, I can't say you're not a part of my political party or whatever, so I'm not going to work with you. Been there, done that. It doesn't work. The charter needs to be refined. It needs to be qualified, because we're sitting here with a person who we expect to be a professional running a city, and we gave her a page to instruct her what to do. Then we took away all of her staff, took away all of her salary, and wonders why things aren't working the way they want to. The charter is the foundation of how this city is run. The first place you look is how you set up the foundation of your house. You don't talk about how good the roof is that you're going to put on before you lay the concrete. If we want to have an effective city, we have to have a charter that makes it clear, regardless of who's in office, it needs to make it clear this is what you do, A, B, and C. Now, we can't change things like staff. Okay, I used to work in a water department, and I can tell you from being a single person what you can and can't get done. If our water department for external affairs needs 4 to 5 people to take care of business and promote the water department, do we really think one executive secretary? But that's not what we as a charter committee can do. But what we can do is take a look at what is in this charter, what are its strengths, where are we having problems, and then we sit down with basic problem solving and we say, this is the problem, let's look at the solutions and choose the best solution. Saying we don't need to do anything, to me, that's why this charter didn't exist for over a year and a half, because we had a group of people who didn't want to do anything. Look where we're at with it.
First off, I think it's disingenuous and flat out that you did not listen to all what the vice chair actually stated in his response. He's not saying, well, let's protect the current status quo and not making no changes. He offered substantive changes that we'd have to consider, and I hope we do look into considering them. But if you want to deflect and grandstand, that's your right. But no one is suggesting that. We want to talk about improving the council manager system. That's the next agenda item. I think Casey, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in your suggestion that if we were to give the mayor a vote, we would then have to rethink the mayoral veto power as well. And I'm not sure if you mentioned that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if we were to talk about that, right, and if we were to have a conversation about giving the mayor's position a vote alongside the council members, then things like the veto power would necessarily go away, right? Because right now the mayor's primary sticks is the veto power. And that is there in large part because the mayor doesn't have a vote. And so if you were to give the mayor a vote, you would have to balance that by eliminating the veto.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. Whether the mayor has an opportunity to nominate a city manager, whether that would make a difference or not, I don't know. All I remember when we operated under the old charter, and Mayor Morris brought forward Charles McNeely and nominated him, who I thought was one of the best city managers that we had. The council still didn't listen to him in that form of government. So whether the mayor has that power to nominate a city manager, I don't know whether it would be changed or not, one way or the other. I don't, at this point in time, I don't have an opinion on that. I would hope, and I believe that I feel it's the people that are sitting on the dais making those decisions under any form of government. Because when we operated under the old form of government, it didn't work. And we found ourselves riding into bankruptcy. Operating under this council manager form of government, it really depends on the people sitting on the dais having the desire to work together for the better needs of the city. And it's up to the people that are out there, I'm talking about the constituents, finding the people that's going to work together for the greater good.
Mr. Albert.
Yes, can I just also get some clarification too? Because my understanding is that in the choosing of a city manager, it's one of the rare instances where under the current system, the mayor actually does get a vote in that process. Can we clarify for?
That's true. The mayor currently gets a vote on hiring decisions of top officials. I think the thing I'd like you to consider is who is best qualified to look at the United States of America, maybe even, well, I won't say abroad. I think we probably need somebody with domestic experience. But certainly the state of California and beyond the state of California to find the best qualified city manager. Is it a member of the city council, sometimes elected with 400 votes? Sometimes we've had more than a few council members convicted of crimes. Some of them have been struggling to make ends meet. I remember a tortilla factory owner, a charming gentleman, but we've had quite a few challenged members of the city council. And I'm not saying that to be mean, I'm saying that to be real. Some of our mayors I have completely disagreed with, completely disliked, had no trust or confidence in, but the majority I have had respect for. And when you go through a citywide election, it does assure some level of competency. If you're not involved in running your campaign, at least you've selected somebody competent that's run a good campaign and put together 20,000 or more votes. So I think we need to look at the experience. As Mr. Daly says, we don't want to personalize it, but we do want to look at our experience. The last two mayors under this current charter have not been reelected. They have been one-term mayors. Prior to this current charter, with our historic charter, the two mayors before that both had multiple terms. The mayor before that retired after one term. The mayors before that had long terms. Wilcox and Holcomb served 18 years. Certainly the stability and the institutional knowledge benefited from having at least a chance of having a mayor serve more than one term. How can you possibly expect a mayor to succeed if they don't have more than 1/8 say in hiring the top administrative official of the city? And again, it's not the mayor's decision, it's just the mayor's nomination. And the council is free to vote against that nomination. I just think that's the best of both worlds. It's giving that authority of the council to say this is a good and reasonable choice, and it's giving the mayor, elected citywide, the opportunity to actually be accountable for something. 1/8 vote, what does that do? It's nothing. Mr. Daly.
Just to respond to the statement about how one goes about identifying and selecting a future executive leader for a city, there's national recruitment firms. There's a half a dozen that I could rattle off right now that the city hires, and they pay a professional to conduct a nationwide search to identify the very best possible candidates that are willing to come to San Bernardino. And it is through that professional process that candidates are identified and then brought forth for consideration. That is how it's happened. It's not as though you've got one or two council members running around, asking people if they want to be city managers. I mean, there's a process for this, and that process involves hiring professionals that do this. They go out, they identify the very best possible candidates we can, bring those forward for consideration, interviews, and all of that. So, the who in this is the professional, much like the city manager is the professional. The who that's involved in identifying the recruitment process is also a professional. So I don't want it to seem like that, because I agree. I 100% agree that we've got a whole heck of a lot of unqualified elected officials that have come through City Hall over the years at all levels. And again, that's not the charter's fault, right? That the charter is not the reason why we have unqualified people getting elected to city offices. I'll leave it at that.
But yet I struggle to think of a mayor that was totally unqualified. Even if I might not have liked them and thought they were a very poor choice, is there a mayor that hasn't had some business experience, that hasn't had some experience running organizations?
The mayor before this one.
And I hear what you're saying. Well, no, the mayor before this one was a pharmaceutical executive. Again, I'm not saying I like them at all, but
he was a sales rep, so it's a little bit different.
He raised more money.
He was a prolific politician, no doubt about it, and he could raise money by keeping his hand out and taking as much money from anybody that'd be willing to give it to him. But that also caused problems. And again, here we are personalizing the whole situation again, right?
I'm just saying that you're never going to have a charter that produces all good elected officials. That's not the charter's role. We're just trying to maximize the opportunities. When you think of the culture of San Bernardino, I could spend all night telling you about all the positive, but as it pertains to City Hall, what you always think of, do you remember in the 1970s, those of you that were old enough? People would rush to turn on the television to watch the city council meetings, or rush to City Hall to watch, because they were contentious. There was always back and forth exchanges. Sometimes they weren't the most respectful. Other words that come to mind, passionate, rough, high conflict. That's our culture in San Bernardino. Council after council, mayor after mayor. These are common themes. We have residents, more residents than most cities of our size, that are living paycheck to paycheck. We're a very diverse city. We're very divided into sections or quadrants or areas. We talk about the north end, we talk about the west side, we talk about downtown. It's a tough city to govern, and the idea that the council is going to rely on some professional recruited and objectively evaluate that professional's advice on who's the best city manager and then make a magical choice of city manager in the best interest of the city, I don't know what city you're talking about. I've lived my entire life in this city, and I have no faith that the council is going to make that kind of decision on a consistent basis. I don't think the mayor is going to make the best choice every time, but I think there's a better chance that the mayor has those qualifications and can sort out that professional that's in line with the mayor's goals that he or she was elected to pursue, and we have a chance. we probably need to move on. I really appreciate the discussion and the divergent opinions. Mr. Olson, you want to finish it off?
You know, I'm listing all of this, and my understanding is when we took up this thing, we're looking at how we can help the mayor with everything. This issue is so small that I'm really trying to figure out what the point is. I have no problem with the mayor nominating a city council person. We talk about consultants who've gone in the process, and we just got done talking with how many managers have we gone through. You think maybe the consultants weren't worth the money we paid them? We're not willing to look at the fact that we had different consultants choose our city manager for us. It didn't work, and yet we're going to go after and say, well, I don't think the mayor could do it properly. I really hope that as a board or commission or whatever we want to call ourselves, we're going to look at some substantive things. I have no problem giving the mayor the right to nominate somebody. I mean, come on now, that's a small issue in the whole big scheme of things. We have a lot of big problems in San Bernardino, and some people just don't want to give anything to the mayor's office. I get it. Others of us want to see it expanded. We'll see how it goes.
Okay, briefly.
Yeah, no, I did bring up something, that I think is actually substantive, that does relate squarely around the role and power and duty of the mayor, which is to give the mayor a vote. I mean, that's a substantive change. And, we can certainly have that conversation here. We can certainly have that conversation here. But, that's, I haven't heard any other substantive discussion points around the role of the mayor, notwithstanding, what we're talking about here about having the mayor be the one to nominate the city manager, with essentially that we go back to basically having the mayor nominated with the concurrence of the city council. But to Mr. Olson's point, I don't see that as really being an earth-shattering change one way or the other. I do think substantively giving the mayor the opportunity to vote alongside their colleagues does have some measurable and demonstrable change in how the city can operate and function. And if we want to have that conversation, I'd be more than happy to let's have that. But if not, that's fine too.
I appreciate that. But I have to say, if you were to look at the issues on which, Mr. Johnson will be next, on which the mayor does have a vote, i.e. hiring, and the rest of the issues, I don't see an improvement on the issues where the mayor does have a vote. The hiring has been, as I think you pointed out most eloquently, 7 city managers in the past 5 years. That has not been a strength in the city. So that's not going to solve the problem. We need to look at things that are going to solve the problem. We have a problem. I guarantee you, if we had the resources to go out in a survey of citizens in this city, they are not happy with City Hall. They're not happy with the way it's run. They're not happy with the results. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. When I served as a council member, I served under the old charter. And outside of the time that Mayor Morris went out and found Charles McNeely, the other city managers that were brought forward into a table where, as a council member, we interviewed 2 or 3 and then chose what we thought were the best one. And so the people that went out and looked for them, it was a firm, even under the old charter. So I don't know whether that portion I haven't seen change from the old charter to the new charter. It's just a matter of who they picked to be the city manager.
And to avoid personalizing too much, but since you brought up Mayor Morris, he's a perfect example of the kind of quality of mayor that you can get with a citywide elected official. And I don't know whether you would say that there would have been a chance of having McNeely if we didn't have the mayor being able to nominate him. I don't know if that council would have gotten their heads together and picked Charles McNeely, which I agree was one of the best city managers. Yes, Mr. Albert.
Mr. Chair, I mean, I just want to be cognizant of the time, and what I would suggest that we do is we keep this item on the next agenda, and I would like to, and I don't know if this would require a motion, but I'd like for us to at least maybe study what empowering the mayor with a vote would mean for the city and possible ramifications of reducing the ward size or increasing it, because I think it's certainly a substantive proposal, and I think it's something that's worth studying. And it keeps this item on the agenda so we can continue talking about it, but there's other things that are worth
I
our
agree.
time too.
Yes, as I stated, it's time to move on. If we could add to what you stated in terms of direction to the city manager's office, that we study the issue of the mayor nominating, subject to council approval, the city manager.
Is that also including what my comments, or?
Your comments plus that, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, anything else before we move on? All right. That brings us to the improving the council manager form of government, which, in my opinion, we've already been discussing, but we will continue discussing in a more broad context. You want to start us off?
Yes, thank you. So for this item, I wrote a brief report, and I did my best to outline specifically the council manager form of government generally, but how it also relates to how it's set up in the city of San Bernardino. And then I also provided some resources from the ICMA that gives you a good survey of other council manager form of governments around the country to help guide the discussion.
Yes, I particularly liked the memo that you put together, which starts out with some of the differences between general law cities and charter cities, and specifically emphasizing the separation of policymaking from professional administration. And as I started us out on the previous agenda item, I am not personally proposing or interested in getting the mayor involved in the administrative aspect. And that's where the complaints that I heard, that I think were very prominent on the prior charter review committee that proposed the current city charter, they were tired of the mayor delving into day-to-day operations and administrative functions. And that does give a person a lot of power to be able to say this contract should go there, or to skew that procedure. And that was an improvement of the current charter, I think, over the past. But as I think San Bernardino has demonstrated time after time in our history, we recognize a problem, and then we take a sledgehammer and we go way too far in solving the problem. I'm thinking about, I know not everybody disliked the former city attorney, Mr. Penman, but those that disliked him were in the majority, and so they recalled him in 2013. And then, was that enough that we had recalled such an aberrant city attorney in the history? I'd never heard complaints about a city attorney even a tenth of the level that we heard about Mr. Penman. So it wasn't enough to recall him. Then we eliminated him from the city charter. It's just part of a pattern that we've had in this city. But that's a whole separate issue of the elected officials. But I would like to put before you the idea that one of the great successes in the history of this city was the city clerk's office. We had some of the finest city clerks throughout history. Literally, you're not going to hear bad comments about the city clerks. Rachel Clark was one of the dearest souls that ever resided in this city. Bless her soul, she's still doing great. She was kind of the glue in City Hall. She was the fair person that would take your documents, that would, take your public records requests, treat them fairly, stay out of the politics, but was accountable to the people. And I've seen a deterioration in that office. I get routine delays of weeks on very simple record requests. the city manager is now in control of the council agenda, which I think causes some issues in terms of balance of power. If it's all coming from the city manager's office, the elected city clerk provided a good check and balance with great success in the history of the city. I have no idea why that position was removed as an elected position, but I'd like us to consider that because it provides that independent source accountable to the voters, check and balance, no political agenda, just doing their job fairly and doing their job right. Anybody else?
We're talking about the city manager number 4, correct?
We are talking about improving the council manager form of government in general.
Okay. I agree 100% with Tim. I never figured out why we got rid of the elected city clerk. And I'm not going to say my own personal opinions and experiences going through the last several months with the election process and dealing with the city clerk. Suffice it to say, I've also dealt extensively with the Registrar of Voters, and I don't know why we're doing certain things the way we are in the city. City clerk is definitely the elected city clerk. But I've heard people say we get a more skilled person. I'm still waiting to see it. In terms of the city manager, which I think is a very important thing that we need to look at. When we had the historic charter, and Tim, you know the history better than I do, we didn't go through city managers nearly as quickly as we did. It was horrible what the city managers were going through. We needed to change it. So we did. And ever since we've changed it, we were promised everything would be fixed. We were promised everything would be better. Well, I don't know what's going on with the city manager's office, but when they keep leaving, somebody didn't fix something. When you have a situation where you have X amount happening and you say it's horrible, you do a change and it gets worse, you got to take an honest look at what happened. And that's really what I hope we can do on the Charter Committee. Of the city clerk's office, Tim and I, I've always supported an elected city attorney. And a lot of people don't know why, and the current city attorney can correct me. We've had a lot of people that are very uncomfortable with city council, what they're doing, what they're not doing. An appointed city attorney cannot file charges against a city manager without first being approved by city council. The reason I liked, and yes, it was contentious at times, but it was a good way. When we had an elected city attorney, that city attorney, if he felt a city council member, any elected official was stepping out of what they should be doing with criminal behavior, he had the right, in fact, he was required under California state law to be the person to file against them. So the problem we have now with a lot of stuff is we got rid of the elected people. And when you have somebody who's elected, they get a set of things from the state that they can and can't do. Okay, the city manager problem, the number of city, I don't even try to keep track of the names over the last 10 years of who's the city council anymore, who's the city manager, because I find out who it is, the next thing I know, they're changing it. That wasn't the way it was with the historic charter. We really need to honestly take a look at some of the things in our city with the mayor. We just got done with, I don't know what, with the mayor. And with the functions of the city manager form of government. And we can talk about Stockton, we can talk about Sacramento, or we can talk about Pasadena. You know what I want to hear? I want to hear what are they doing that works in Ontario? What are they doing that works in Rancho Cucamonga? What are they doing that works in Fontana? What is Penny doing in Highland? That's what I want to hear, because we have some very successful cities all around us, and yet we ignore the obvious examples of what we should and shouldn't do. Now, when it comes to us suggesting to change the city number of people on a board, I'm not going to be the one to volunteer to be off this board just because people want to have less people on the board. Same thing with city council. I was appointed by my city council. I'm not going to go back to her and say, we decided we need only 5 people to vote instead of 7. That means I just went to her and said she has a 1 in however many chance of no longer being elected because we got rid of her office. I'm not going to be a part of that because I know where that one goes. So when we're looking at improving the city, what is the problem we face? What's the biggest problem we face in this city? Define it. and then say, what are 3 possible solutions that would make it better? And then pick the best solution one way or the other. Right now, we're all talking around in circles about everything. We need to actually sit down and say, this is the problem, and this is how we solve the problem, and then we vote and give the recommendation to City Council. I'm really not sure how we're trying to fix the government with our current, improving the council manager form of government. I can tell you one thing. You look at Fontana and the mayor of Fontana. I don't know if it's a general law city or a charter city, but trust me, either way, she takes care of business. Why can't we set our mayor up to do the same? Mayor Leon, I've known him. He's been there for how many years? Ontario has done really well. They fought LA for an airport and won. Okay, and even as a general law city, Fontana manages to take care of business. Ontario manages to take care of business. I'm leaving Rancho Cucamonga because they've got their own little problems right now and all that. Penny in the little city of Highland, she's kicked our butt over the last 10 years. Look at the growth in Highland versus the growth in San Bernardino. How can a little person like Highland with this basic government, why are they so successful? Why can't we look at that kind of stuff? That's really what I would hope the Charter Committee would start focusing on. We're going in circles.
Mr. Daly.
Thank you. Well, I can tell you one thing, all 4 of those cities have in common is that they're all council manager forms of government.
I thought all of the cities in California were now council manager form.
Not all.
Okay.
Not all. Another thing that all of those cities have in common is a strategic plan. And that's one of the things that the city of San Bernardino is sorely lacking, because the root of, in my opinion, the lack of leadership and the lack of vision that comes out of City Hall is because there's a lack of a strategic plan. And the strategic plan is a document that really is where the focus ought to be, because that is what outlines the goals, priorities, objectives of a city that is bought in by the community, bought in by the mayor, the council, and all of the electeds. What are the top 3 things that are most important to the city? How do we want to improve those things? How do we measure where we are and where we're trying to go? And then you start to create metrics and quantifiable data and objective standards for moving from point A to point B. You then assign dollars to that, right? If public safety is the most important thing and we need to have more cops per capita, then you identify that number and you assign the budget as part of the role of the mayor and council, which is to adopt the budget and give direction to the manager to go do it. That's how you hold a manager accountable. And then everything the manager does goes back to what's in the strategic plan. And that is how successful cities stay successful, and that's how cities are able to turn themselves around. It's not rocket science. It's planning and having a vision. And the charter is not the reason the city doesn't have a strategic plan. Again, it's the lack of leadership and vision amongst our elected officials.
Isn't the real question, though, I agree with you, Mr. Daly, but isn't the real question which type of government management would be more likely to have a general plan, to create a general plan, to emphasize a general plan? Would it be 8 co-equal council/mayor people? It's all of your jobs? Or would it be a chief elected official responsible for policy, elected citywide, to lead the council in a responsible direction? I can't say either form of government is going to have a magic cure. I'm sure you wouldn't say that either. But if you have a person that is the highest ranking elected official, elected citywide, I think we have a greater chance of getting those types of things accomplished in a more business-like manner. Because I agree with you, that's been a big problem in the city's history, is having a general plan, updating a general plan, getting sued as a result of a deficient general plan, et cetera. Mr. Albert.
Yeah, getting back to improving a council manager form of government and considering why we're here in the first place, right? One of the proposals that I think that we need to identify that was really toxic was eliminating primary elections without changing our electoral system. which again would produce candidates that win with less than 20% of the vote, depending on how many candidates that run. Considering that I think that's dead in the water right now, I want to also raise that that's currently the structure for our recall elections in the city of San Bernardino, and I think that's per our charter. Now, I know I'm certainly going to get some pushback on this, on ranked choice voting, but I think at the very least, as a compromise, I think it's something we should consider for recall elections for that nature, given how prominent the recall movement is in our city and has been in recent memory. I think, again, it's a good solution for that issue to make sure that if the recall is successful, that candidates that are elected in that are elected through majority support and not through a sliver of support. So that's something that I just want to propose in that regard. But again, I would like to see us continue to further talk about this on a more ongoing basis. But I just wanted to mention that, and I think getting to Mr. Olson's point, I think that the core part of what our city is struggling with is toxic leaders, toxic political culture that are derived from our mayor and council. And that's something that I hope that we can focus on policies and solutions to correct that.
I want to compliment Mr. Albert on kind of moderating his proposal in terms of ranked choice voting. I highly agree with that. I think that's a real need. And when you have a recall election, there's no primary for the replacement. So that would be kind of like a testing the waters for the city. It's been tested elsewhere throughout the nation, but I've heard some reluctance out there of people that maybe don't understand ranked choice. It took me, I was always kind of a math whiz, but it took me a while to really get comfortable with the math side of it, of how it works. Maybe you should just, in a couple sentences, you could probably do it better than I could, explain it for the benefit of us and the public, how it works.
Yeah, so the very, on our current system, which is a plurality form of system, you vote for one candidate, and if that candidate gets over majority support, they win. But under a ranking system, you're able to rank your choices in preference. So, for instance, I'll say that the governor's race right now, we have a top two primary system, and candidates are, voters are under the idea that they either have to choose who they most represent them or who is most likely to advance to the top two runoff system. Thereby, it creates a very unrepresentative and disempowering system for voters, where if you had ranked choice voting, you'd be able to rank your candidates in order of preference without having to think about, whether there was a spoiler candidate or that in that regard. And one of the things that I think that could really do well for our city is that it actually encourages consensus building amongst elected officials and actually produces majority and representative outcomes, as shown in places that it's been instituted.
It wasn't two sentences, but it was very good. And I think stating the governor's race makes it compelling, because I think we're all a little frustrated with what's going on, that we may not have choices from both parties in our jungle primary. And ranked choice voting would probably solve that problem. So any other thoughts before we leave this topic of the recall situation as applying the ranked choice voting to the recall circumstance?
Can I speak?
I'm seeing kind of a consensus on that issue.
No, I'm not in agreement. I just want to speak.
Okay. If you don't agree with that, why don't you speak now and save your other comments so we can be a little organized before we move on to the next topic under
Well, I
this
just
item?
want to speak on the improving the city manager form of government. That portion.
You want to say something about ranked choice on recall?
I don't.
Do we have a consensus on that issue?
Not the last comments. I would like to say something. The topic here is improving the general manager form of government, and somehow we got on elections. I would strongly encourage all of you to be very careful with me on the dais. I have more experience in campaigns and working with candidates than anybody here in this room. There is no issue with the current set. We were told we wanted to change our current voter system because we could have two people in the same, from the same office in. There was all sorts of weird stuff. I can tell you as somebody who has to literally on a daily deal with campaign strategy and what we're doing in the city, you know what it means to me as somebody who works on campaigns? I change my strategy. I have never figured out why it makes any sense for ranked choice voting. That's not how we're going to fix improving the council manager form of government. If we want to fix the council manager form of government, we have to come up with, like I said before, topics specific to that. Use local examples, what works, what doesn't, come up with some positive choices. Ranked choice voting, and the last time we met, we decided we didn't want that as an issue. It's dead because we voted it dead. As far as the charter, I don't think the charter determines the voting things that go on in the city. I believe that's California state law last time I checked. So please, can we talk about things on topic related to improving the council manager form of government? You could change campaign rules all day long. And you know what somebody like me is going to do? I'm just going to change my strategy and adjust.
Okay, I'll withdraw my statement that we have consensus on the ranked choice voting. I tried, Mr. Albert.
Well, I'm happy to make a motion to that effect, if that helps.
It's not on the agenda.
I think it's within the general improvement of the council manager form of government because it directly affects what quality or type of candidates we get and how they're selected, which I think we've all identified as a big problem with this form of government. We don't have good, reliable council candidates.
If it helps, Mr. Chair, maybe just bringing it back for a future meeting to study recall elections and this issue and how ranked choice voting could improve that outcome. But I do want to remind the dais that elections are under the charter purview, and solutions like this could actually improve our council manager form of government.
Okay, maybe we can at least have consensus that we can have some consideration by the city manager's office on that issue. Hearing no objections. Okay, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. One of the things I do agree with Mr. Olson, we need to be specific. We need examples that are working primarily in communities close by us, in the council manager form of government, and look at those and see how we can institute those in San Bernardino to improve it. I know it's a challenge with staff to get all that information like that, but that's the information we need to make decisions. You talk about the city clerk, Rachel Clark. She was phenomenal. She took shorthand, something that nobody does no more. You know, so that's why she was able to keep her stuff in line. You know, so that's something that we'll probably never see again. You know, and I don't know whether making that position, elected position, would make it better or not, because when she was that person, we haven't seen somebody like her since she left. But far as, once again, that hearing, we need specific examples on how we can improve the council manager form of government, because right now we're talking in circles.
Well, I can't agree that we're talking in circles. I think it's a very productive discussion, and one that I'm glad we have members of the public here to witness. And I don't think we need to make decisions tonight, but I think we're starting down a path with some good discussion. So thank you all.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If I may also, I think it would also be nice, given that I think there's been consensus in identifying that turnover within the city manager's office is a critical issue that we need to fix. Just trying to see if, maybe the staff can bring back what other charter committees are doing to see how the charter can be amended to fix this issue, or how they're addressing it. I think I would be certainly open to seeing what solutions, what policies are out there to address that.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that we should limit our analysis to local cities. I don't even know how you define local. Are you talking about Inland Empire, San Bernardino/Riverside? Is Orange County and LA off limits? Why would Stockton be off limits? Stockton has such a similar history to San Bernardino in terms of it's a charter city. It's got great diversity. It's a proud city that's had struggles and was in bankruptcy at the same time San Bernardino was. I think we need to cast our net a little more broadly. Population is an important thing. I think we don't want to focus on cities with 5,000 people, but if we could continue to look at all comparable cities, I think that would be good. And also to Mr. Johnson's point, you know, there was a time where San Bernardino was the unquestioned leader of the Inland Empire. And I just hate the whole mindset that I think the prior charter committee was somewhat guilty of saying, you know, we need to look at our neighbors to decide how it should work in San Bernardino. San Bernardino's never been like its neighbors, and it's never been a follower city. It was city on the move. It was one of the early redevelopment agency cities. It has a proud history of being on the forefront. So best practices are certainly highly relevant, but we shouldn't be limited to what other cities have done that don't have the great history that San Bernardino does.
I've never said limited, but consider local cities as well, because in one of these agenda items, term limits, it was very few local cities in there. We went all over the state. There was some in there, but as far as close by, we just talked about charter cities, and also there's general law cities that are council manager form of government that we need to include in the process as well.
Okay, we're getting to 7:30. Is it okay if we move on to the fifth agenda item, which is public outreach? We started a little bit of discussion on that last time, and before our hiatus as a charter, I'll remind folks that aren't on the committee that might not remember that the city manager terminated this committee's meeting schedule, and we weren't consulted as to what our opinions were on that, what our input is on that decision. We were just canceled, and no fault to the current city manager. This was one of the 7 progression of city managers, and you know, a pox on the elected officials' house that I'm sure other people raised the issue. I certainly went down to the council more than once and complained about it, and I was assured that they would reinstate us, but it wasn't until this special meeting with 140 people that we were finally reactivated. But anyway, before that hiatus, we were ready to go out into the public and start our public outreach, and we were where we are right now, discussing ways to do that. So I'm anxious after 3 years that we can actually do that. Do you want to start off our approach on that?
Yes, and just to add to what you said, I spoke to the city manager following the last meeting about some of the strategies that he thinks he could support and that could be effective, and I've outlined them in the report. And the 2 that are outlined are similar to what the Charter Review Committee did in past committees, which was develop public surveys, which were somewhat informational, but also to ascertain some information from the public as well as educate them, and then potentially hosting a public forum where the Charter Review Committee could further explain the charter, the old charter, the new charter, and then, you know, interact with the public to educate them more.
Well, it was suggested that we might do online public forums this time. I'm not opposed to that, but I would like to see us at least attempt one in-person public forum. Maybe people are more and more comfortable with online forums, so maybe we don't need to do 3. But I would like to see at least one, and then maybe a couple online forums in deference to the city manager's opinion, which I'm sure is fueled by budget considerations and practical considerations, staffing considerations. Thoughts?
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I think, first of all, it's super encouraging to hear that the city manager is open to the idea of putting some city resources behind the work that we're trying to accomplish here by way of educating the public on the charter. So I thank the city manager for that, and so that's encouraging. I like the idea of a survey. I think that's a good way to kind of ascertain general level of knowledge and awareness of where the public is as far as, are they aware that the city has a charter? Do they know what the charter is, what it is not? And I think it could also be an opportunity for the community to, as we've been talking about here, get specific on some of the issues that they see with the current operations of the city. And then I think based on that information, that can help us to determine what is appropriate, what concerns are applicable to our purview, and then what concerns are applicable to really the council and mayor. So I like the idea of a survey a lot. I think that could be a really informative thing. It's a fairly low lift. We could do something online. You could put it together, promote it out there through the neighborhood associations. You could do that for a little while, get a good number of responses. We could then hear that information, digest it, talk about it, and then that could then lead to actually hosting a public forum based on the survey responses, and then based on that, then we could schedule a public forum to talk about the results of the survey, provide education on what the charter is, what it isn't, and then the feedback from the survey as to issues and challenges and needs, the desires, problems, et cetera. So that could probably start to narrow down where our scope could be again. And is it a charter thing? If it is, great, it comes to us. If it's not a charter thing, then let's figure out where it's appropriate to go and have it go there, so that those issues and concerns can continue to be heard and tried to be resolved. That would be my 2 cents.
I know last time we had, the composition of the Charter Review Committee was different at that time before the hiatus, but we had some pretty extensive discussion and compromising negotiation as to this outreach would be have two missions. One would be educational, where we would try to refresh the memory or educate the public in terms of what we all study here, what you've heard tonight in terms of how our charter is structured and what the different options are. And then, of course, the feedback element, where we ask the public for their opinions on what frustrates them and how they think things can be improved. To me, you almost have to have the first part before the second part. I think if we just sent a survey out right now, it wouldn't be as meaningful as a survey after we kind of bring the issues to the minds of the voters, not to try to sway them, but to inform them of what we currently have. I think you're going to find a lot of people out there don't even know that we don't have a strong mayor form of government anymore. There was an election, but I'm not sure everybody really understood what was in that Measure L. So I think if we maybe had two forums instead of in different neighborhoods, just to have different in time. One along with an educational effort at the beginning, and then maybe the survey, and then another forum where we're taking our most valued input from the public into what they want in any revisions to the charter. Does that make any sense? I'm hearing a consensus. Maybe it's just because it's a late hour.
Just waiting.
Mr. Olson, go ahead.
I have some concerns about this subject. Okay, in the city of San Bernardino, who currently does public outreach? Is there a specific department or a specific, who is in charge of public outreach in the city?
I think it would definitely depend on the subject matter. If per different departments would handle that. There is a public information officer that works with different departments from a general standpoint, puts out press releases, social media, but they work with departments on specific things, so it's subject-based.
Okay, so my first concern would be if we have somebody in the city like that, the first thing we should do is touch bases with, identify who they are that is appropriate to the charter committee. Because last time I brought up a question and it was answered to me and I wasn't comfortable with the answer as far as us going forward. I was comfortable with who gave the answer and what they said from the city attorney. We have a huge problem because none of us on this commission, the chairman included, have the right to speak for issues in the city related to the charter. And that's built into the requirements for this group. So when we start talking about we want to do outreach to educate the public, we are stepping in some very serious ground. And I say this from a professional background. I worked for a water department when they were going through changes. I was a community affairs representative. I had to take what the board wanted, what my CEO wanted, and the VP that was my boss, and we had to put it together, and I had to go out to community, I had to do outreach. Honestly, outreach is critical. I know, because I took it in the city of Rialto, and anybody knows about what the water department I worked for, nobody knew who it was. You said West Valley, they thought it was where they put people in jail. Literally. I had literally to spend 6 to 8 months out in the community, and I went from who's West Valley to why isn't West Valley here and involved? I know how to do community outreach professionally. I've done it successfully. And what we're saying we want to do here, we're not dotting I's, we're not crossing our T's. We do not go out as an individual organization and or board or commission to educate anybody. All we have is our own personal opinions as given us by the First Amendment. So until we have a clear definition from the city what the rules and guidelines are for what we can and cannot do, to me it's a moot point. We have to start from a position of what is public outreach in San Bernardino, who does it in the city, and how do we set it up so we don't violate our own rules that we're supposed to go by. And right now, we're not in a position to do that because we don't know it. As far as educating people in the city charter, half the people in the city don't even know what a charter is. And I say that because I work with candidates, and they go door to door. I've worked with candidates that have already gone 5,000, 2,000 doors, and they come back to me with a question. You know how many questions they get about the city charter? 0. Yeah, thank you. We have several candidates in here right now. I appreciate the candidate from the 4th Ward. We have much bigger problems. First of all, if we don't explain what the charter is or what a commission is for that sample, going out and trying to do a blind survey. The problem with blind surveys is if somebody wants to change your opinion, they get 20 friends or 20 different computers, they take the survey and you get one person's opinion that equals 20 and 5 other people's opinion. This happens all the time. I love the idea that we could educate the public. I'm all for it. I've done it professionally. But we're going to have a criteria and a set of rules from the city that defines what we can and cannot do as a committee before we start. Otherwise, we're running too many risks. And I don't know about you, but city attorney, last thing she wants to do is backpedal when we go out on our own and try to. She has a hard enough job as it is with it happening in the city without us making it harder for her. So
We're coming up on the targeted adjournment time, so let's keep our comments brief. Mr. Albert?
Yeah, I'm just hoping that the city attorney's office can take this opportunity to give us some direction on some of those comments that have been stated.
Right. What I'm hearing from Mr. Olson is investigate the role of the public information officer and how that can be of assistance and whether that's the proper channel and or any other channels, and maybe some further analysis in light of the comments on a couple public forums, one early and one later, and the survey that Mr. Daly suggested, whether that's feasible. anything else before we go to comments from committee members?
Just briefly, public outreach, the charter is really not an attractive topic to take out to the public. It's just, if I was out in the community and somebody said, well, I'm having a forum on the charter, I'm watching TV. I mean, I'm just being real.
I don't know. We've got some pretty great citizens in the audience. I've seen council meetings, especially the ones that extend past 8 o'clock, that didn't have this many people. So thanks again to the public that turned out. You want to finish us off and also start on your comment, Mr. Albert?
Well, I actually just also in that clarification back from the city attorney's office, whether I know the city has had a knee-jerk reaction to hire a consultant to do this work for us, but I, for one, am certainly interested in being a part of this conversation, and maybe if we can do a subcommittee to kind of work on this, more proactively, I'm all for. I recently attended the Parks and Recs master plan, and I saw how furious the local public were on the $900,000 contract that they gave to the consultant to do very little work. So I want to make sure that this if it goes forward, that it's community driven and that we're involved in the process from the start.
I would just like clarification. So in terms of the outreach, is the outreach so that the committee can sense from the public what amendments they would want to the charter, or what exactly? Because I just want to clarify, because part of the committee's role is to ensure that the charter is up to date and recommend amendments to it. So I just want to make sure there's a connection between the outreach and the charter itself. Does that make sense?
If I may, I think I agree with the sentiment that it'd be good to first get the survey responses, and preferably a representative sample of survey responses back before we do public forums, because I think that survey can do a lot of good in terms of educating the public and closing the information gap regarding the charter.
Yeah, I see an effort before the survey to start the educational process. Otherwise, you're going to have a push poll, which I think we can all agree is not scientifically reliable. If your survey is designed to push the survey takers into a certain result, it's not a valid poll. It's just a propaganda piece, really. So I think we want to be careful in our education to be neutral and, present the options. Most importantly, present what we exactly have right now, and then get the feedback from the voters on what problems do they see with respect to City Hall. We don't want general problems of crime and code enforcement and that kind of stuff. We want problems focused on things that we can do something about with the charter. So why don't we continue on with final comments from Mr. Johnson?
No comment.
All right. Mr. Daly.
I'm good for now. Thank you. Great meeting.
All right. See, I saved the comments for the end and nobody has anything to say. Save us time. Mr. Olson.
I'll make it brief. Brief by not my standards. My whole thing that I spoke about today, and I'm a little bit worn out, so I don't know, I got to get into the mix with this. The Charter Committee is about the charter. And we can agree to disagree, and we can go back and forth. But my thing is, when we're looking at the mayor, what are the positives and what are the negatives that we're dealing with? What is changeable, and what are our options? That's what I'm interested in. We can go around the circles about, well, we feel this way or that way all day long, and the Charter Committee is not going to get anywhere. In regards to the public outreach, I'm not saying no to public outreach. I'm just saying be very, very careful, because you open your mouth and you get in trouble real quick. That's why I said, who in the city is in charge of this? Because if we work through the city with the backing of the mayor, we know we're going to stay straight on course. At least hopefully the person working in the city is this one. And I say this from professional experience. I would not have been able to do what I do as a community outreach person if I had not worked directly with the VP that was my boss and worked with the general manager with knowing what the board wanted. Okay, so the board is elected officials. That's really where I'm coming from is, let's look at topic A. Is it a solvable problem or not a solvable problem? If it's solvable, then what are the main solutions for us to solve it? Then C, we choose what's the best thing we recommend to the city. And to me, there are no boundaries or there is nothing off limit. Because if we look at the charter and we find out it's not a problem, it's all good. If we look at the charter in the context of what we're perceiving out in the community, what's happening with our elected officials, this or that, first thing is it has to be a charter-related issue. Well, a lot of the stuff we're going on, and some of it we have to bring in because a lot of this we've had to deal with, like Casey has said and others say, it's been a war of personalities when it comes to what we do in the city for far too long. I've been there, done that, don't want to play it anymore. Anybody who knows me knows I have changed direction in my personal life and what I do in the city 180 degrees. So with the charter committee, I want to see us look at things. And if we find out things are good and there's no issue, perfect. If there's a problem, what can we as a charter committee do? That's where I'm coming from.
Mr. City Manager Office.
I just wanted to clarify that we'll keep on the agenda item number 2, role, powers, and duties of the mayor. Item number 3, no action, no further discussion. Item number 4, we will keep on the agenda, improving the council manager form of government. And item number 5, city charter public outreach, will keep on the agenda. And then you had various comments as to some potential avenues that you'd like to explore when they come back on the agenda.
That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
And just wanted to thank everybody for coming out, thank my colleagues. I want to especially thank Mr. Friedman for his comment, Mr. Smith, Ms. Wilkinson, and of course, Mr. Fuentes, our youth representative, the future. We have a lot of ground to cover and a serious job ahead of us. I'm glad that there's so much interest in the city. Let's keep it coming. We have the option of, if you can't make it next month on the 4th Wednesday, you can submit your comments online. And there's information about how to do that in your agendas. I got one comment I'd like to share with you from a longtime resident of the 5th Ward, Hank Mitchell, who says, thank you for your commitment, time, energy, and patience for heading up the Charter Committee. I know your heart will be in it. I just hope good business sense is utilized in any redesign of the new charter, including remaining strong business, municipal experience, and knowledgeable management and ethics in our city manager controls, and we can retain the people's choices, in capital letters, on mayor, and return the people's choice, in capital letters again, for city attorney positions. You are a Purdue kid at heart, and I am putting my faith in you for that as well. Sincerely, Old Fart in Vertimont. I thought that was cute. So with that, I will wish you all good night, and we are adjourned.